Christy Oliver, the Professional Development Manager at Davis Publications. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for our 9th session in a series of weekly webinars that happen on Tuesday afternoons through mid-June. Today, we are thrilled to have Jane Dalton with us to share some of the ways we can embed mindfulness into our classrooms. But before we get to that, we have a few quick housekeeping things to review. We would love for you to ask questions throughout our time together. The best way to do that is to type your questions into the chat box or use the Q&A button. Both can be found at the bottom of your screen. We'll be monitoring these throughout the session, and we'll get to as many questions as we can during our time together. Also, just a reminder that we are recording this session, and after we finish today, a link to the video will be emailed to you and will also be available for viewing at davisart.com/free resources for anyone who might like to watch. Next slide, please. It is my pleasure to introduce to you today Jane Dalton. Jane is an Associate Professor of Art Education at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. She earned her PhD in Expressive Arts and Education and an MFA in Textile Design and Weaving. Her research interests include mindfulness, contemplative pedagogy and practice, and transformative learning using the arts. Her teaching includes studio arts, arts-based professional development workshops for K-12 teachers, and preparing pre-service art education teachers. She teaches with the arts at the center of learning, believing that arts are a powerful tool for transforming classrooms by motivating students to make connections across content area, to work cooperatively, and to think critically and creatively. Through the arts, her aim is to support individuals to become richer, more whole, perhaps more compassionate because of greater self-awareness and a deeper understanding of their place in the world. Jane has practiced meditation, yoga, and contemplative practices for 30 years. A textile artist, her work has appeared in solo and group exhibitions throughout the United States and can be found in private and corporate collections. In addition to her textile work, she maintains a personal, ongoing expressive art practice using multiple modalities that explores art as a healing modality with a focus on the creative process and not the artistic product. She is the co-author of The Compassionate Classroom, Lessons that Nurture Empathy and Wisdom, and co-editor of Contemplative Practices, Pedagogy and Research in Education, and The Whole Person, Embodying Teaching and Learning through Lectio and Visio Divina. She has published numerous articles and book chapters on the value of arts, contemplative practice, and mindfulness in art education. As I mentioned, I'm Christy Oliver, and I'm the Professional Development Manager for Davis Publications. I have over 15 years of teaching experience in both high school and university settings, where I aim to assist communities in providing high-quality art education experiences for all learners, students and teachers alike. I earned a PhD in Educational Studies from Lesley University, and my research interests include visual literacy, 21st century art education, contemporary photography, slow pedagogy, contemplative practice, and the creative process. And I was recently honored with the NAEA Eastern Region Award for 2020. Jane and I met a number of years ago when a mutual friend reached out to collaborate on a writing project, and very quickly we found that our philosophies were aligned and we were both very passionate about using mindfulness and contemplative practices in the art room. We also noted that the ways we approach art making and teaching were similar, but with some differences that we had a lot of fun exploring. Needless to say, Jane and I have been collaborating, writing together, and conducting conference presentations and workshops ever since. And now we're excited because we've been crafting resources for the Mindful Studio to help art teachers embed mindful practices into their classroom. Next slide. Today, we'll provide an overview of mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness. Then we'll walk you through 2 hands-on studio practices, the anchor breath and a body scan. If you'd like to participate, you'll need a piece of paper, any size, and your favorite drawing tool. Next, we'll provide tips for implementing mindful practices into your classroom, and we'll finish the session with question and answer. Just a reminder to type the questions into the chat box or use the Q&A function. Both can be found at the bottom of your screen. Next slide. And now I'll turn it over to Jane to provide an overview of the Mindful Studio.
Welcome, everyone. I know there's a few familiar faces out there. I just can't see you. So excited to have some former students and colleagues with us here on this webinar. As Christy mentioned, we have worked together over a number of years, and what you'll see in this webinar is in part what we had planned on presenting at the National Art Education Association Conference in Minneapolis in March. So even though that conference was canceled, you'll get a little bit of a taste here of what mindfulness can be in the art classroom. And we look forward to having some of your questions towards the end. What we have here, Christy and I crafted, is our definition of the mindful studio, where we bring both mindfulness and art together to cultivate present moment awareness of the breath, the body, thoughts, emotions, and the creative impulse. Our aim of the Mindful Studio is to provide purposeful experiences to enhance self-awareness by participating in mindful making without judgment, to strengthen imagination and enhance the creative process. What you're going to see throughout is examples of students' work. As you can see here on this slide, I teach a class called Creativity and Social Emotional Learning. And in that class, students need to keep a visual journal going throughout the entire semester. In that class, I embed mindfulness and mindfulness art-based practices along with social emotional learning. And as art teachers, we know it's important to have that experiential component to deepen the learning and strengthen recalls. So enjoy the students' artwork along the side. Next, please. So as Christy mentioned, we're going to start by explaining what mindfulness is. And I think this is an important point here to talk about the difference between mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. I think this is an area that people can get confused about. So the three things that mindfulness are, in my definition, is it's intentional, experiential, and non-judgmental. So intentional is that it cultivates that present moment awareness, and we become able to make our decisions because we are in the present moment. We're not letting our mind wander to the past. We're not letting it wander to the future. We are actually in the present moment. And mindfulness, it's not a temporary state of mind. It is actually something that we can cultivate, and it can stay with us throughout the day. Again, it's a practice, so we need to always come back to that. And mindfulness really is a way of living. Now, meditation actually can lead us, mindfulness meditation can lead us to a mindful state of awareness, but mindfulness meditation is actually a practice all on its own that actually enhances daily mindfulness. So experiential also is focusing again on that present moment in the experience, again, not going back and forth. So where meditation is the training ground for mindfulness, mindfulness is being in that present moment. And again, our mind can get so easily distracted, and we just need to come back to that present moment. And most importantly, and I think very beneficially to the art classroom, is non-judgmental. We choose to see things as they are without a critical or mental label to it. And we have all been in classrooms where students are, I can't do this, I can't draw, I'm not creative. And by introducing mindfulness and letting that understanding of non-judgmental awareness come into the classroom, it can soften the experience, and students are more willing to take risks. So again, why I bring mindfulness into my classroom is because it offers an opportunity for them to still their mind, still their body, be in the present moment, and cultivate an awareness of their emotions, their perceptions, and also to reduce judgment. Next slide, please. So I'm going to elaborate on a few of these things again. So being in the present moment, again, that is, our brain has a default mechanism that takes us away from that present moment. And we want to have that ability to just say, come back. I don't want to think about my to-do list. I don't want to think about my next class. I want to just be here and now. And that present moment can also extend in the art classroom to materials, to media, to process, to actually listening to instructions. So how is it that we cultivate that mindfulness so students are present? It's actually, research has shown that it can be a good classroom management tool. But again, it might not happen overnight. It's a practice. Breathing, and we're going to be doing a breathing meditation here. Breathing helps us re-engage with our body. A lot of us tend to become out of our body. We're so stressed, we don't notice what we're feeling. So by breathing in and being fully present in the body, that is one of what's called the anchor breath. And we're going to do an exercise on that. So that breathing then gets us back in. And sometimes you can place your hand on your heart, place your hand on your belly to notice that rise and fall of your chest. Also, we can observe our thoughts without judgment. We become aware of our awareness. It's meta-awareness. Some of you may have heard the term metacognition, thinking about your thinking. So we just notice that I'm anxious, I'm fearful, I'm nervous, and we become aware of those, but we don't let them stick. We don't let them ruminate in our minds. Also, mindfulness is trusting the process of not knowing. And again, in the art studio, I know a lot of teachers talk about having a beginner's mind, that we begin again, that we just try this and recognize that we may not be the best drawer or the best potter or the best weaver, but we just let go and we trust that process more. It also allows us to expand our awareness of our body sensations, our emotions, and our thoughts. The beauty of the arts is that they are expressive. So we have this opportunity through mindfulness to trust that intuitive and creative impulse, which we mentioned earlier, and to really let that feed into whatever it is we are creating in the moment. Also staying open to what arises. Again, that could be media, materials. We may come into an art project with a set idea of what it is we want to do, but by just going with the flow, we become more open to what arises in that moment. We switch materials, we switch colors, and we allow that to feed that creative process. And most importantly, we become kind to ourselves. We add a little bit of compassion and tenderness and kindness. And in the world right now, that's something that all of us desperately need. So next slide, please. So to define mindfulness, let's look at what mindfulness is not. It's not always being calm. I think that is one of the misnomers, that people think mindful people should be calm people. That's just not the case. We can't always be calm. And we have a range of emotions, but what mindfulness does is let us recognize those ranges of emotions. So every day we change, every moment we change, so just recognize we're not always meant to be calm. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve the world's problems. It's not going to work in every situation. It's not going to work with every student. I've had great success with it, but I've also had students who just don't want to participate, and we'll talk about that a little later. It's not about taking a vacation from your life, although I suspect many of us would like to take a vacation right now, but it's about being present with your life. Not about ignoring challenges. It's about embracing challenges. Again, we don't want to run away from what's causing struggles or challenges, but we want to step into it with a greater awareness. And it's not about grasping these positive experiences or emotions. Again, it's like, I am angry, I am sad, I am happy, whatever it is, all emotions are fleeting, and the only constant in life is change. So we know that. So again, being open to that. It's also not just getting a massage, or as they say right now, quaran binging. I heard that's a new term. Taking a run, going, for a walk, reading a book. These things are when we disconnect. Again, mindfulness is about connection. It's about present moment awareness. It's not a luxury for a privileged few. It's accessible to everyone in all socioeconomic areas, grade levels. I've done it as young as 5th graders, and it's pretty sweet to see a bunch of 5-year-olds sitting on a rug in the front of a classroom meditating. And it's not a temporary state of mind. Meditation may be a set period, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but that idea of mindfulness, it can become a permanent part of your daily life. Next, please. So the benefits of mindfulness, and there's just been an explosion of neuroscience research in the past few years. I started teaching mindfulness 30 years ago in a high school setting, and at that time there wasn't any neuroscience, so it was a little risky for me to teach when there wasn't the backing to say what the benefits of mindfulness were in the classroom. But there has just been such a burgeoning research area in mindfulness and in neuroplasticity to show what are the benefits to the brain, that it's starting to I think this is one of the areas that's bringing mindfulness to the forefront. So it does reduce anxiety and stress. And actually there's an amygdala, it's a part of your brain, and it's the region that handles stress. And with stress, it becomes smaller, but the research shows that the brain can actually manage this better with mindfulness. Focus and attention can also come because of the way that we're always calling ourselves back to the breath, back to the present moment. So this, along with cultivating that observation and non-judgmental awareness, are things that come out of this mindfulness. Again, we always just come back. So that's creating an incredible amount of focus and attention. And research does show that it helps with ADHD and ADD students. So students that have difficulty focusing, we can bring them back in. Again, different results for different students, different times of the day. It's a constant changing practice. Mindfulness and creativity, there's a prefrontal cortex, the area of your brain responsible for problem solving and controlling your emotions. The gray matter in this area can actually become thicker through mindfulness, and it shows increased activity in thought. Some of that comes from not having our minds being so active that it's distracted. Research shows that we cannot multitask. People say they're good multitaskers. Research shows it's really not possible. So by mindfulness, we actually become more creative or more open again to allowing those impulses and that creative fluid thought come out. It also nurtures patience and helping us let go and make peace with imperfection. And the arts are about imperfection. I mean, we all know what it's like to have an idea in our head and wanting to go draw it or make it, and the project always turns out slightly different. But if we let go and become more aware with that imperfection, we can embrace it, and it can enhance that creative process. Mindfulness also helps with memory. The hippocampus helps your memory and learning. And again, this also becomes better for mindfulness. So maybe for a few of us art teachers, this could benefit us because we don't have to keep repeating the instructions over and over and over again. So, and the other thing, greater well-being in empathy, again, that gray matter gets increased, but there is something that has been researched that there are happy chemicals that actually are released when we're meditating, when we're doing mindfulness, and it lowers our blood pressure, it improves our digestion, and it relaxes tension. And it's simple. Next slide, please. So this is where mindfulness and social emotional learning and art really have such a beautiful fit together, these three. Social emotional learning and mindfulness really integrate the mind, body, and heart. And some of you who have been teaching for years understand the premise of holistic education, which is mind, body, spirit. Hans Hoffman also talked about head, hand, and heart. The arts are the one place where we can bring those three together. So social emotional learning and mindfulness and art really fit like hand in glove, just a beautiful fit. On the screen, you'll see the diagram from CASTLE, which is the Collaborative Association of Social Emotional Learning. And this is their wheel of awareness that talks about the different aspects of social emotional learning. We won't go into detail here about it, but we do plan on doing professional development in the future, in which case that will have a lot more dense experience and understanding of SEL. UNESCO and other organizations are now starting to promote that social emotional learning is essential to global citizenship. And I think that's a really positive. This is really taken, again, like mindfulness, come up into the forefront. So CASTLE, one of the things, I'm just going to read briefly what their definition is of social emotional learning. It's the process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. So again, we also know that the arts do all of this. The arts are a vehicle for addressing social emotional learning. They are expressive, they promote self-management, self-discipline, strong interpersonal skills, and self-expression. So as art educators, we have this really unique approach to developing curriculum that can mindfully engage social emotional learning and strengthen empathy and compassion while also promoting other aspects of the curriculum. Next slide, please. So this is where we're going to do a short practice. So get your paper and your drawing tool. And if you don't have paper and a drawing tool, just draw on the table, draw in the air. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you through a short meditation for 90 seconds. And the reason I call this the anchor breath is, and this is one of the foundational aspects of mindfulness meditation, is to always come back to the breath. So if we sit and we are doing a mindfulness meditation without someone guiding you, like I'm going to be here shortly, we sit and then we just notice our breath, and then our mind spins off and it's like, I got to get groceries and I have to do this. You're like, oh, my breath. And I come back to my breath. Again, you can put your hand on your heart. You can put your hand on your belly. One of the wonderful mindfulness activities I saw for kindergartners was or the young children, was to have a stuffed animal that was their meditation buddy. And when they laid on their back, they would put the stuffed animal on their stomach and watch it rise and fall. So it became their meditation buddy. So again, that breath, that's one of the most simple ways to come back to a mindfulness practice. So I'm just going to assume you're all ready because I can't see you raise your hands. A little hard to teach a class when I can't see you. So just get comfortable in your chair or your studio or wherever you're at, and put your feet firmly on the ground. I love envisioning the feet being rooted and seeing these roots extend deep into the earth, just anchoring us like a mighty oak. And I'd like you to close your eyes. For some of you, if you're not comfortable with your eyes closed, then I encourage a soft gaze. Try to just keep them softly closed. And if you're ready, then just have your paper handy, put your pencil in your hand, and then you're going to put your pen point down on the paper. So I hope everybody's with me and your eyes are closed or partially closed. Your feet are grounded and you're comfortable in your chair. So what I want you to do now is notice your breath, the in and the out. Again, inhale deeply and exhale deeply. Notice the rise and fall of your breath, the in and the out. And with your pencil or pen, continue now or start to draw on your paper. And what you're going to be drawing is your breath marks. Again, noticing the in and the out. And your pencil's down, and you're just making marks. No judgment. But that drawing tool is an indicator of your breath. It could be short, it could be quick, could be long, could be fluid. Just draw as you breathe. And anytime your mind wanders, come back to the breath. And again, your tool is just making the marks. Could be continuous lines, could be broken. But your awareness is on the breath and less on the tool. More on your body sensations and less on the action of drawing. Your awareness is your breath. Your awareness of the present moment. Your awareness of here and now. And when you hear the bell, I invite you to stop drawing. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Jane, for leading us through that. Now we'd like to see and open it up for a little bit of chat discussion on what did you notice. So if you want to add any reflections to the chat box, I'll read some of them out. But here are some prompts that you can think about now for your own practice, or you can use in your classroom with your students. How do you feel now versus before the breath meditation? What sensations do you notice in your body? What do your lines or marks reveal to you? Were you surprised by your drawing? So it sounds like people are saying that they are more calm, more focused, a little happier, feeling very relaxed, that they have spaciousness, calmness. Let's see. Very peaceful, focused. Some people are surprised at how small or how large their drawings are compared to what they thought maybe it would be. Other people are saying that they are feeling alert or just better in general, relaxed, quiet, heightened. We all are really good with this chat. Excellent. They just keep coming in. Excellent, excellent.
They're mindful chatters.
Yes. People are saying that the marks changed as the breathing went on, that they should do it every day, that they're noticing different things about how they didn't get distracted, which is great. I know for me, I use it for that a lot when I'm feeling like I'm too scattered. Wonderful. Okay. Very good. Let's move to the next slide.
Yeah, I just enjoyed reading one where the lines were sharp and jagged and then they started to smooth out. I think that's a great way to illustrate how we become aware of all our emotions at any certain point in time, how we're feeling at any point in time. And it also shows that our emotions and our feelings can change in a given second. So mindfulness, again, is really helping us to become more aware of where we're at right now. And it does offer opportunity for us down. And like Christy said, I do some mindful drawing regularly. It's an ongoing practice with me. And by having that tool in my hand, I can become more engaged with my body as well, because I notice the breath, but then I'm actually drawing the breath. So
right, and only 90 seconds. So I also just want to say that I think sometimes people feel like they need a lot of time in order to do these things, but again, like just some quick breathing or a little slow breathing, but it doesn't take long. Great.
Right, quick process, slow breath. The idea is, again, to keep noticing your breath. And again, if it's agitated, I saw one comment where their breath felt agitated or their heart started racing. Notice that. And again, always come back to that breath. There are ways to breathe in to the count of 5, exhale to the count of 6. Again, shorter inhale, longer exhale. There's a lot of different processes to engaging in the breath, and this is just one simple activity. So you ready for another one? Can't see any hands up, so I'm hoping you're saying yes. So this is a body scan, and I have done demonstrations with this. I know both Christy and I have done this, but we're not able to show you some demonstrations. What I do have up on the screen are some large body scans that I did in a renewal seminar for teachers. They drew their bodies on acetate. It was a partner project where we just laid the clear acetate on the ground and asked them, and again, there was mindfulness before this to let them feel their bodies. And then they laid down, and with a black marker, they drew their shape of however they wanted to be. And throughout the week, we actually meditated and kept building on top of this clear acetate with what I call provocative materials, house paint and twigs and brushes and just, you know, dumpster diving, what us art teachers are so good at. And so it was an ongoing process. Since you don't have 6 feet of acetate and a partner nearby, what we're going to do is just, again, take a clean sheet of paper And that same drawing tool, or if you want to shake it up and get a different drawing tool, you can. And I'm going to lead you through a little bit of a longer body scan. And I'm going to start at your feet, and then I'm going to move us up to the top of our head. Now, you can draw an actual contour outline. You can just make expressive marks with the feet, like what do the feet feel like? Do you want to draw roots? Again, your eyes, I recommend they're closed because we want this to be blind contour. They don't have to be closed, or they can look off in the distance. But the idea is, again, to engage our movement with our awareness of our body. And if we're looking at what we're drawing, then we're starting to get that more judgmental, critical mind in, and we want to disconnect from that. So I hope that's clear, but you can go any way you want to because you're creative people, because you're art teachers. So let's get ready again. And again, this will be a little bit longer, probably be about 2.5 minute body scan. And I just have your clean sheet of paper in front of you. And again, soft gaze, you can close it with your eyes. The beauty is that each of you will have something different, and each of you can take whatever it is that comes out of this and turn it into your own lesson plan somehow, some way that's age appropriate. And maybe it's just a feat that you're going to draw in a class. So again, just settle back into your chair and allow your body to become comfortable. Again, you can close your eyes or leave them slightly open. You want to let your spine sort of be tall but soft. And if your shoulders are up around your ears, I know sometimes I wear my shoulders as earrings. You want to soften them. You want to drop them down. And take a full breath in. And again, a long breath out. And begin by bringing attention to your entire body. Again, if it helps you to get back into a mindful place, put your hand on your heart. Put your hand on your belly. But begin to notice the feeling of the weight of your body on the chair or on the floor, wherever you're at. And begin to notice the sensations of your feet against the floor. Notice the weight. Do they have those roots pushing down into the earth? And as you notice your feet, just draw your feet. However you want to draw your feet. Again, it could be simple expressive mark, could be little circles, could be as detailed. But just notice the sensations of your feet against the floor, grounded, weighted. Notice the temperature. Perhaps there's a feeling of energy in your feet. Now we're going to move up, and I want you to notice your ankles. How do your ankles feel? Your shin, your calf. Might start feeling some muscles. Maybe you go deeper in and notice the bone inside your legs. Bring your awareness up to your knees. Drawing your knees, the energy of your knees. There's no right or wrong. Move on up to your thighs. How do your thighs feel as they're sitting on the chair? How do they feel? Do you notice the bone, the muscles? Is there tension? And can you relax anywhere in your body? Drawing the sensation of how you feel, what you're noticing. Now we're going to move into the upper back and the lower back. So as you move through your thighs into your hips, and into the lower back. What do you notice? Is there any tension in your hips or your lower back? If there is, I encourage you just to breathe into any areas that are tense, releasing and softening, and using the drawing tool to help with softening and releasing. Bring your attention to your stomach. Notice, is your stomach tense or tight? What's the shape of your stomach? What's the feel of your stomach? What does that feeling look like as it moves through your hand and through the drawing tool onto paper? And again, if your stomach is tight, just breathe into it to soften and release. Our stomachs often hold a lot of tension and stress. So a deep belly breath can help soften and release. So let's move our attention up to our chest and our upper back, the place of our heart. What do you notice? I like dropping into a space where I can feel my heart. What's in there right now? What are some of the emotions I'm feeling? What are some of the sensations in my chest? Again, is it tight? Is it restricted? You continue just to breathe in and breathe out. You just learned quickly about the anchor breath. Mindfully, we come back to our breath. Now we'll move up to our shoulders and notice how they feel. Maybe they're already softer than they were when you first started. Notice any sensations in your shoulders and go down your arms, allowing any tension to move from your shoulders down to your upper arms, through your elbow, to your forearms, your wrists, your hands, and then your fingers. Maybe there's just energy washing out of your fingers, that tension you had in your shoulders if you had any, or just the ease of your shoulders. Just let everything move out and draw, making those marks that are expressive, that help you understand what it is you're feeling, what you are noticing, and all the sensations in your body. Again, notice the tightness, notice the temperature, and just let everything be soft. As we move back up the arms, let's notice your neck and your throat and your jaw. Are you holding any tension in your jaw or your throat? Is there a way to let your face be soft and relax the muscles around your mouth, your jaw, your eyes, and your nose? Again, just make marks, literal or expressive. And let your face be soft. And bring your attention now to the top of your head, noticing any sensations in the scalp. What sensations are you aware of? How does your scalp feel? What do you notice at the top of your head? And again, always return to your breath. So now that we've moved through the entire body, make any other marks that you want to make in the next few seconds, staying with this sense of your whole body for a few breaths. And when you hear the bell, slowly open your eyes as best you can and finish with a deep inhale and exhale. So again, just let your eyes softly open and take in the light, or just take a moment to let your body reconnect to this space, the computer, and your three co-presenters. Christy, let's go to the next slide.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jane. So for the sake of time, I won't have you, you can share in the chat box if you want, but we're not going to read them out for right now because I want to make sure that we have time to get to all of the great tips that we have prepared for you as well. But one of the things that I found really helpful when I do this with groups of students is to do a debrief very similar to the way that we did with the anchor breath afterwards. So some of the reflection prompts we use for that are: what sensations are most noticeable in your body? Again, you can talk about the before and the after. How did it feel to notice the sensations in your body? Did you experience tightness, softness, restriction, openness, or any other sensation? What word would you use to describe your body before you began and then after? So sometimes I use this as a precursor when I was teaching figure drawing. It's a great way to explore non-traditional figurative works or the various ways people are depicted in a variety of artworks throughout time. For example, I used the body scan to open a class session with a specific focus and calm before moving on to a discussion on the work of Amy Silman, before providing a prompt for students to explore the figure however it made sense to them. I think a lot of times they get really hung up with trying to make the facial features or the body look in a very specific way or in a very idealized way. And this really helps them to loosen and open up while also maintaining focus and calm. It's a really nice check-in for really any time. And as you can see, 3 minutes is a great amount of time to spend on this. If you want to lengthen it, you can. If you want to shorten it, you could do that. You could also just focus on certain parts of the body like the hand or the feet or the face. Anything that really suits your needs is, again, totally fine and really wonderful. There's a lot of really good options of where to go after you do the body scan. You can always make that into a more sustained artwork if you want. I've had students make like work that looks almost like heat maps. So the color is more condensed where they feel like they need to have more attention, and like lighter and looser where they're feeling okay and light. You can extend the line drawings. You can make mixed media pieces that express anything that the students are feeling or needing attention for or trying to express with how they're feeling in their body. It's also a great way to start exploring contour and blind contour, and I'm sure that you'll be able to think of lots of ways to incorporate this exercise into your existing curriculum. Next slide, please. So we've also put together some tips for you. We're going to run through them fairly quickly for a mindful thing. It's always that we have a set amount of time, but we also want to practice slow pedagogy. So we're constantly dealing with this, but we'd love to share some of these with you. So the first one is mindful activities don't have to last long to be meaningful. So I think that you've just experienced two. Again, the first one was 90 seconds and then less than 3 minutes for the body scan. So just thinking about what really is important in that moment and what do the students need. I find that 3 deep breaths can make a huge difference. It doesn't even take a full minute to complete 3 deep breaths. And you can use them at the start of class, at the end of class, anytime during the class that you feel the students need it. Ultimately, this provides an opportunity for students to recognize when they need it and to do it on their own. Next slide, please.
One of the things that I do with my class in their visual journal is I have a prompt that I have them do when they come in. An example of one of these journal pages is on the right, and it's I am. It's an I am poem, which some of you have probably used in your classes. But by having them write down today I am ... that gives them an opportunity to do an own check-in with them. And you can do it before and after. The other thing I do sometimes is what's called silence and centering, where I just have students sit for 1 minute or 2 minutes of silence before we start the day. And I've noticed a big difference in classes when they all come in like, what are we doing today? And, as all kids can be. And then I start with silence and centering, and it does slow the class down. There's a synchronization. It's really quite lovely. Again, not all students want to meditate. Not all students have personal desire to do it or beliefs, but I found that I've had a large percentage that do. And those that don't want to meditate, I just ask that they sit quietly while we do. Next slide.
So the next one is about setting intentions. As a way to empower students and offer some personalization, ask students to set an intention at the beginning of class. This could really be as simple as take risks with my artwork, try a new material, stay focused, or challenge myself to create something new. They can use the same intention over and over again if that makes sense for the student, or they can change each day depending on what they feel they need to accomplish. For some classes, you may want to help by offering a few suggestions for students to choose, or you can link them to specific activities you hope to accomplish during that specific class period. This is really helpful for students who tend to get off task. They can revisit the intention at any time. They can write it like at the top of their sketchbook or on a Post-it next to them so that they're reminded of what their goal is for that class or what they came to and intend to do during that time. And you can also have the whole class revisit an intention at any point during the class. And it's also a nice way you can tie it into exit tickets if you need to. Next slide.
Another tip is to implement mindful moments. And again, you could just have students take a deep breath before they respond to prompts, before they start working in their sketchbooks. Most teachers know the concept of wait time, where we ask a question and then we let space happen a minute or two before we expect responses from students. So that wait time, by incorporating it into the art classroom, allows students an opportunity just, again, to slow down. Remember, the difference between mindfulness and mindfulness meditation is that mindfulness is the awareness of the present moment. So any opportunity you can give students to just be present before they start engaging in a task is always helpful. Next slide, please.
So similar to mindful moments, mindful minutes provide opportunities for students to focus or refocus. In a mindful minute, you can time it for a full minute, or you can refine the actual amount of time to meet your needs and the needs of your students. The goal here is to enhance an awareness by asking students to engage with the five senses by noticing what they see, touch, smell, taste, and hear in that given moment. Again, they can document or just pause, whatever meets your needs. Next slide.
So the simple hand breathing is a technique I've done with young kids, and it could be done with older students as well. I've done this in college to my pre-service teachers. And it is basically taking their hand and having them trace their hand. And no, we're not going to make turkeys for Thanksgiving, but we're going to trace their hand. That's not good. And just breathing in as they go up the thumb, breathing out as they go down the thumb. And again, by tracing it and then making this a piece of art, at any time, if they need to calm down, you can have them go back to that very drawing and just trace around what they already drew or do another drawing. Next slide, please.
So for mindful listening, you can do this a number of different ways. I'm just going to describe one of the techniques that works for me. In mindful listening, students are often in pairs and asked to focus on what the other person is saying. You can use any discussion prompt you like. I often use one that would help explore a big idea or theme, or something that we'll be exploring in a sustained artwork. If you aren't sure what to use as a prompt, any kind of story works well and can be true or fictional. If you need it to be a little bit less intimidating, fictional stories are great. To practice mindful listening, students take turns speaking, focusing on what the other person is saying, silently acknowledging their own reactions and feelings to communicate later. Often we encourage only listening, no note-taking or anything that might be distracting. That way they'll only remember what they really connected with. When the first person is done speaking, the second person can ask friendly, open-ended, or clarifying questions until the designated time is up. Then they switch roles. After the conversation, students can document their impressions through artwork, which can be individual or collaborative. Sometimes it's focused solely on what they heard from the other person, or you can ask them to incorporate both their story and the story from the other person into one piece. And then they can focus on the connections, similarities, or differences, whatever meets your needs. Next slide.
S.T.O.P is a simple exercise that you can do at any point during the class. It doesn't have to be before or after. And you can put a sign up on the wall, and if you start to notice the class energy is escalating, you can just have students stop. Stop what they're doing, take a slow, deep breath, observe your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and proceed with your art or daily life. And again, just a reminder, our breath is a constant. It's with us all the time. So just doing stop at any point during the class period can help refocus the group. Next slide.
So for mindful looking, there's lots of ways you can facilitate mindful or deep looking. Any prompt that asks students to pause and notice something visual will work just fine. You can simply ask students to look silently for a set amount of time, or ask them to consider a specific aspect of a work, whatever it is that you're viewing. If you haven't done this before with large groups, it works well if you start with shorter amount of times and then work up. I usually start with 20 or 30 seconds and work up to 5 or 10 minutes. I've done it with a variety of age groups. Working up the length of time really helps them focus. And if you're in a space where they can choose a piece of artwork, that's also helpful to keep them looking for longer amounts of time. Sometimes even like just physical space between the students helps them to focus on what they're looking at. So if you happen to be in a museum or have prints around your classroom where they can spread out, that would be really ideal for this. But what I find too is that students really love to do this. At first, they struggle a little bit with the distractions, but then they're so thankful to have had the time to focus, and they always end up seeing more than they think. Next slide.
And we're all familiar with exit tickets, but making them mindful gives another opportunity for students to become aware of what it is that they've learned that day. So it could be something as simple as what they're grateful for. They can comment about a moment, an experience, maybe a new art material or media or process they learned, or the support they received from a friend. Sometimes I just ask students, what is it that you learned today that you didn't know before today? Or what do you feel more confident about? Or where was your awareness increase? So simple things for mindfulness activities, again, to get them connected back to their experience and also promote well-being. Next slide, please. So mindful practice is self-care. As Christy mentioned, I've been meditating for 30 years, and it has been a lifeline for me. And that mindful awareness is something that I carry with me at all times, and I come back to it. Or just remember, practice is just that, it's practice. It's something we do over and over and over again. So when you start with mindfulness, it's not going to be easy to come back, or because it might not be as familiar to you. Your body hasn't been trained to know that, wait, I'm anxious now, I need to breathe. So starting your own self-care practice is really important. You could start a daily meditation practice and on your phone, or there's a free app from Insight Timer, and you can set that for 1 minute, increase to 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Also be aware that your meditation is going to change. It might be really focused one day and you might feel peaceful, or you might come out of a meditation just as agitated as you went in, but at least you were aware of your agitation. So start your practice, maybe keep a visual journal, meditate, and then draw what it is, just like we did with the anchor breath. The other thing I do is I have an ongoing visual journal that documents how I feel. And when I sit down into my little studio space, I actually have a ritual that I do. I start with a couple minutes of deep breathing. And then I open up my journal and then I start to make art. And it really changes the way I'm doing it. So we teach who we are. So it's really important that we do self-care. We've all traveled on planes, I believe, and we all know what we're told is put your oxygen mask on before you assist others. So for teachers, it's critically important that we take care of ourselves and nurture ourselves so that we have more to give. Next.
We do have a few minutes that we can take questions. So if you have any, if you can use the chat box or the Q&A button, both you can find at the bottom of your screen. And while you are typing your questions, I will remind you that we have some great handouts for you. The School Arts article on the anchor breath drawing will be available, as well as a great handout on the body scan and the tips that we just showed you. Those will be available right after the session. You can go to davisart.com/free resources, exactly where you signed up for this webinar, and you'll see the recording will be put up, but the handouts will also be placed there. All right, let's see if we can answer some questions. Yes, so the artist that I mentioned is Amy Silman for expressive figurative work. I don't know, Jane, do you have any artists that you like to look at or refer to when you do body scans?
I'm sure I do. Put me on the spot.
No, it's okay. It's always hard to think of the name.
I'm like, I can see their paintings, like Egon Schiele is one. You know, a lot, I think you could really just look at a lot of different artists, but there are some that I look at and show examples of. So if anything pops up in the next minute or two, I'll let you know.
Do you have mindful art classes, or do you integrate these practices into your typical curriculum?
I integrate them into the curriculum. So it becomes just a part of the day, just the same way as taking attendance. Now we sit and be mindful before classes start, or if at any point things get out of hand, I'll bring students back in to do mindful. When I've seen some of my teachers integrate into their classrooms, they might bring the small children back up to the front of the classroom and like, let's just sit and be mindful again. But it's lovely just to see kids come in and start to understand that we start our day with mindfulness. So it's an integrated practice. It's just the same as doing an exit ticket. We do mindfulness.
What kind of prompts or questions would you ask students when practicing mindful looking?
Do you want me to answer that, Christy, or do you?
I mean, I can if you like. So I usually, so when I start this with a group of students, again, it's like working up. I start really simple. It can be, what do you notice? And it really can just be, what do you see? And then after maybe 30 seconds, you know, you can try something like, what more can you find? Which is also a VTS prompt, but anything that engages them with the work is totally fine. If you are just starting, you can start with things that are a little bit more concrete. I personally like to start with things that are a little bit more open and broad, because I feel like getting them, once you get them hooked, it's a lot easier to then go a little bit deeper. So starting, when you're first starting, keeping it really simple and short is key. When you get into it after a while, you can do all kinds of different techniques, or you can really go for a long amount of time. I've had students who have gone, 10 minutes and they don't even realize it's 10 minutes, but they're so thankful for the opportunity to just be able to sit and look at something, especially if you're like in a museum or in a situation where you can view an actual piece of artwork. It really, really makes a big difference. But any kind of inquiry question, even if it's a question around a big idea, if you're looking at something and it's, you're talking about connections, like what are the ways that this piece connects? Sometimes you can go as deep as, what is this piece trying to say to you? Or what is this person trying to communicate? And again, like with the idea that there's no right or wrong answer. Jane and I have also done some workshops on Lectio and Visio Divina, and that's a 4-step process for engaging with artwork that we'll talk about at another time, because it's a little bit too involved for right now. But really anything like that you can use to, any prompt that you would normally use to have students look at artwork would work really well for this.
And I'm just going to add to that. One of the things that I do is when I take them to a museum or we go look at artwork, I have them sit still and look at it without reading the card on the side. I don't want them to know the title of the painting or the sculpture. I want them just to sit and be with it. And then I just keep saying, now look again, like Christy said, look again. Look again. What did you see that you didn't notice before? I have actually done this with college students where they had to go back 5 times throughout the semester to sit in front of the same piece of artwork silently for 15 minutes just to see what shifted for them.
There's one question here about how to incorporate some of these things over Zoom or through virtual learning. Do you have any suggestions for that?
How to do this just like we did? Yeah, how to do, I mean, we kind of demonstrated that in a way through Zoom. There is some research out there, some articles on it, but I find that I do it the same way I do in the class, just the same way I do with you, is that it's harder because you can't see if everybody's with you, everybody's on task, but you can still talk about these mindfulness practices and you can still give them an opportunity, the participants, to engage in mindful practices. So it's different. You just kind of got to adjust your awareness and trust that what you're saying is being well received. So it does make it a little bit more challenging because you can't read the classroom the same way you can on a webinar, but the same way that was modeled for you is here in this webinar is how I would recommend doing it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that for a lot of these practices and trying to encourage students to use them when they're not in your classroom is really great, especially for right now. It is definitely a stressful time for everyone. Their routines are getting all shaken up, and just like remembering and know that you can stop and breathe or do a quick drawing or whatever it might be, I think are all like techniques that, you know, we want them to practice in the art classroom, but also whenever they need them.
One here that Christy said, she asked if these can be done with younger classes, and definitely. You know,
Yes.
just get big crayons, a big sheet of paper, and, you know, do these same things with them. And maybe with the little ones, you might just say, let's just focus on your hand, or let's focus on your feet. Maybe not do the full body scan. But again, anything can be simplified or extended. Christy, I interrupted you. What did you want to add?
No, I was going to ask, someone's worried about middle school students falling asleep. Have you ever had any students fall asleep on you?
I have not had them fall asleep, but I've actually had college kids fall asleep, so I know they do. I think I had my high school kids fall asleep, but what I say is I'd say that's okay. If that's what they need, if that's what their body is calling for, then that's okay. It doesn't have to be 100% participation. What I do want is 100% of quiet, because I want them to understand what silence sounds like. If you track that I want them to be aware of stillness and silence. So they will fall asleep, and we all have those students who are exhausted. So that's okay. And when they pop their heads up and say, I'm sorry, I fell asleep, I'm like, that's okay. That's what your body needed. So again, we're getting them to honor who they are and being aware of their own body needs as well. So that's self-compassion and self-awareness.
Right. And I think, you know, I don't think I've ever had a student fall asleep, but I have had students who have been a little bit resistant, especially at first. Mm-hmm. And I think for them, or if you have any students that are expressing that they don't want to do it or aren't comfortable in that, doing any kind of, you know, closing the eyes or breathing or whatever it might be, I think just having alternatives for them is great. Sometimes it's a sit and scribble, because that is a wonderful release. I think we all forget like how good it feels to just sit down and scribble on a piece of paper. So again, as long as it's not distracting for the other students who are wanting to do that, there's lots of ways that you can differentiate to meet those needs. I had one college student who was really not into it, and we started every class. She took a lap around the building and came back while we were doing our guided meditation. And she was so much calmer after just having that amount of time alone and to focus on just walking around, that she actually got the same result or felt the same calmness as the other students who were just like literally sitting and meditating for 2 minutes. So I think just figuring out what works for those students that you have in front of you is really key. And you might have to try, you know, a bunch of different things and see what sticks. And that's totally fine as well.
Right, because one class will respond one way, another class completely different. So as you build up your repertoire and your tools, then you just start to, you know, shuffle them around and say, this class likes to be silent for 2 minutes, this class. But I do feel like starting each class, sometimes it could just be ringing the bell. That's all it is. And it gets them to come back to the present moment. That bell that I use, I've carried with me for 15 years. And when my students were escalating or their voices got too loud, I could just ring that bell without even having to say anything or raise my voice, and it just calmed them down and got them to focus again.
Great. So I would love to tell you about a little giveaway. We have a new book. Oh, can we go to that one? Thank you. Therapeutic Approaches in Art Education by Dr. Lisa Kay. That is some suggestions for using mindfulness in your classroom. For a chance to win a copy of this book, please share how you are practicing mindfulness and tag us on social media by Friday, June 5th at 5 Eastern, and we'll be pulling a winner. Be sure to check out the free weekly webinar by Dr. Lisa Kay on therapeutic approaches by visiting davisart.com/free resources. I want to take a moment also to remind everyone that Davis has lots of great resources for you to access and share with the teachers you work with. If you head over to davisart.com/free resources, you'll be able to sign up for weekly webinars, gain free access to the Davis digital platform, access free professional development sessions, read School Arts Magazine online, and view some of our on-demand video lessons. We would like to invite you all to attend our future weekly webinars. Next week, I'll be joined by mural artist Alice Misrachi, who will be discussing her large-scale public works while providing helpful tips to creating murals in your community. Later in the series, we'll hear from experts on photography, so please head over to davisart.com/free resources to sign up. We also have an exhibition opportunity for art teachers. School Arts Magazine and the Frank Juarez Gallery are hosting an art exhibit for teachers called Pushing the Envelope, a Mail Art Gallery Show. All you have to do is create a small piece of artwork, one that can be mailed in a standard 4x6 envelope, and send it via the U.S. Postal Service to Frank Juarez by July 24th. So you've got plenty of time to make more body scans and more breath drawings and turn them into great things to send along for this exhibit. The works will be featured in online exhibitions. A selection will be featured in the November issue of School Arts Magazine, and the collection will be shown at the NHS Artifacts Gallery at Sheboygan North High School in Wisconsin. We hope that you will consider making something fun for this exhibit. A special thanks to Jane Dalton for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with us this afternoon. And thanks everyone who joined us. We hope you found the session calming and stress-free. We're going to stop recording now, but we'll stay on for just a few minutes longer to answer any burning questions that you may have. We hope that you all stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you again soon.